Hello, this is Krypt, and as you may have noticed, this is my voice. This is the first video I've actually used my voice in, and I'm going to be doing it a lot more from here on out because it's kind of crucial to actually give insight into my building process and what I'm doing. So expect to hear my voice more from here on out. I'm not a huge fan of my voice, but hopefully it won't bother you guys too much. So yeah, today, if you didn't read the title of the video, I'm going to be talking about block design conceptualizations. And I'm actually pretty annoyed right now, pretty angry, not in a great mood because I spent about 3 hours, maybe a bit less, doing block design conceptualizations, maybe even 4 hours, honestly, probably around 3.5, doing block design conceptualizations while I was recording and commentating. And let's just say my computer ran out of space because the recording was so long and it just didn't save any of the footage, which is really stupid. I wish it just stopped the recording so that I could have salvaged some of it, but it literally just deleted all of it or corrupted it, and I tried many ways of uncorrupting the files. Nothing worked. So instead of watching me build these in real time and looking through my creative process, you're gonna have to settle for me reviewing what I did and basically going over it again. Luckily, I still have quite a few more block designs to conceptualize, which I'll be doing in a later episode, and hopefully I can actually do it right that time. But for now, I'm just going to be going over what I've already done. And I have block designs for 4 parts. This first one is very basic, and I haven't really done anything with it yet. It looks pretty bad in my opinion. It's the worst of the 4 easily. And it's still just a concept. So, of course, it's not like in its finished state. This is just something for me to build off of. And it's for the theater mirror part at the very beginning, which you saw in the last episode. By the way, this is not my best art by any means. It's not even that good in my opinion. But I think when you see how short these parts are, you'll realize that it's fine. So what I did is I tried to go for a structure that was mirrored because, you know, the part's themed around a mirror. So I have this line that splits the block designs down the center, and on either side there's a pink topper, saturated pink topper, that basically stands out against the background. And just like the mirror, it has light sticking out of it. And it also has a spike mirror to the other side just to show that everything is indeed mirrored. Same with the designs in here. Very simplistic, very easy to replicate, and will probably be altered in some way as well. And I tried out another style over here using these cubes, or not cubes, squares, and I didn't like it at all. I don't like it at all. So I'm this is the point of a concept though, is to just try things out, and I am going to change that later. This was just me testing the waters on that and realizing that I don't like it at all. And I will go into a bit more detail here. This gray, and I mentioned all this while I was building it, which is now lost. This gray is not just like a darkened white, it's a darkened pinkish purple, because obviously the block design is pink, uses like a hot pink as its top. So I never like to use just a normal white at a dark level. I like to hue shift the white. See like how much worse this looks? You can tell how much more devoid of color this is, and it just doesn't match. That's the same brightness, by the way, I'm pretty sure. But yeah, so I always add a slight coloring to my grays now. I didn't used to. Back in most of Summertime's block designs and all of Citrus's block designs, when I used gray, I never used to change it from a white, which is something I definitely do differently if I were to go back and remake those levels, along with a ton of other stuff, obviously. And I also like to use a very dark gray. I don't like to go light on my grays, because I think that when you have too light of a gray, it just doesn't stand out well against the background, doesn't provide enough contrast, and it doesn't end up looking very good. That's a lot of my problems with today's more generic modern style, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people don't like the modern style is because of poor color usage. A lot of times you see modern levels that do a design like this. They take a white, they make it down to about 0.6, like a really unappealing light gray, maybe a bit darker than that, maybe like 0.5, too light of a gray. They do this, they add a top to it, like something like this. I'm just going to use an orange for an example. Actually, I'll use pink. They do that, and then they take these triangles, and they just put it at the same color, just like a higher saturation or something, I don't know. And then they just go like that, and then that's their block design. And I think that's a problem, because first off, this just looks extraordinarily flat, and I do a lot of flat design, but nothing this flat. Secondly, this gray is just unappealing. Immediately, say I were to alter this design while keeping it basically the same, changing this to a 13 already makes it look slightly better. Changing it down to like 0.24 already makes it look much, much better. Then taking this down to a lower level and putting a shadow in there will make this look much, 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 much better. I did not mean to copy and paste that. And maybe even making it darker. And of course, I would never use a block design like this, but I'm just saying, like, in the instance that you would, this is some of the problems I find with them. And then next, you may even want to add an outline. So I would probably do it in the same color I do my shading. Alright, so already that looks much better, in my opinion. And you haven't even added any designs to the center and stuff yet. But compare that to what we had before, which I'm going to attempt to replicate now, which was probably something like this. And you can see how much better the difference looks already, and that's without even adding in uniqueness to it. This is if you were to just take this ununique design that everyone uses everywhere and just add some basic changes to it. And I can see why people hate the new modern style. It makes a lot of sense to me, and I don't like it either. I like creative modern with nice flat design style. I don't like using blacks. I don't like using too light of grays. It has to be like balanced for me. And I think that that's what I've tried to do here, and that's what I try to do in all of my block designs. Although I will say this is by far the worst of all the conceptualizations I've made. So next is the second worst of all of them. I will mention the part is stage lights, and if I still had the footage from before, you would have seen me making all the colors, trying to work through how to implement light, like a light design onto the block design, if that makes any sense, like a stage light design. And so I came up with these kind of concentric circles. You have this circle in the center, which is the dark blue color, which is used for the outer trim, and inside of it is some on top of it is a smaller centerpiece in a bright light color, and these two I don't know what you call them, shining beacons or whatever, that in level will both be layered correctly, because you'll see in a second they lie underneath another asset, but they will also rotate around, and this is what I mean by layered correct. And this is what I mean by layered correctly. You see they're underneath those pieces. They'll be layered correctly, and they will rotate around like this, making kind of a light effect. And then I also did this outer circle in a lighter color, and I had this thick gray border between them, because otherwise I think it would be not enough contrast or difference between these two pieces. I think there needs to be a border between them to separate out these colors. And I did essentially the same thing to these over here. I'm pretty sure this color has gotten changed. I'm fairly certain, because I remember this being a bluish color. Anyway, now I'm just screwing around with this. And then I didn't really know what to do to fill the space. I had these triangles at the bottom, and I mentioned in the video that I once again will mention that I lost, that these were just placeholders. I didn't really know what I wanted to add down there, and I didn't like the way they looked. I still don't like the way they look, and those will probably be changed. I feel like this has a lot of empty space despite having almost every space filled, if that makes sense. It feels like there's only one layer to this block design. It doesn't feel like there's multiple layers, which I don't like to do anymore. Nowadays, I like to make it seem like there's a lot more depth to the block designs, and this just feels very flat to me. Kind of the same problem as what I was explaining before with the generic modern. But overall, once again, this is literally for about a 3-second part, and I think it will more than suffice, to say the least. And then we move on to I only have 2 more block designs to show off, but we move on to one of my favorites. Sorry, I'm stuttering over my words. Which is for a studio lot and golf cart part. So this background is going to be a golf cart zooming around in front of a Hollywood studio building, and I gave the whole backstory to that before, but I'll say it again, which is basically I want this whole first part, which is very chaotic in the song, to be like everyone rushing to get on set, almost like everyone's rushing to get ready to start production of this movie, and this whole rushing about part lasts from the beginning of the level right here to right here, or actually right here, sorry, where it slows down. This gap here will be a cutscene, but yeah, right here it slows down, and that's really where the start of a level would normally be, at a really slow part, which will then ramp up slowly until you get to the drop. But I really want to start with all this chaos and activity, and that's why I'm shifting between parts so quickly. And I feel like this part definitely exuded that chaos. So when I was coming up with colors, I was thinking about what I wanted, or what the colors in the background were going to be. Obviously the golf cart was going to be mostly white, maybe a bit of this bluish color for shading, but I didn't really include that in the block design at all. And then of course the what do you call them? The studio lot was going to be a beigeish color, and I wanted all these warning signs and speed limit signs to be on the block designs. I thought that would be cool to mix with the vehicular aspect of the golf cart zooming around, and all the logistical nightmare of this set production. So I had this yellow color for this warning sign, and I took the beige and I kind of hinted it towards the yellow so it would match better. I didn't use this beige in the block design at all, or this yellowy tan, but it will probably be used somewhere in the background. Maybe it will be more beige then. And the product I came up with was this, and I'm pretty sure this is bluish. Yeah, this is bluish. Okay, good. So I am decently happy with how this turned out. It's pretty simple. Like I said, it's just a concept, but what I started with was the structuring. So if I still had the footage, you would have seen that what I had first was everything here minus this sign. So if I were to just like somehow get rid of this sign, which I can't really do because of how badly I've layered everything here, but imagine this block design without the sign or without the electrical panel and wiring here, just this underneath part. I had originally had just the square here with the outline, and I was talking about how recently I've been trying to change structuring so it's not just so square. That's a problem I've had a lot in the past, where all of my block designs are very square and haven't had much unique structuring. I definitely strayed away from that a bit in some parts of Ultramarine, but for the most part that's been the case. Or they've been very diagonal, kind of like this part back here, you know. It's very, very straightforward and definitely adheres to the entirety of the structure. And I wanted to cut away some of that to chisel out part of it. So I brought back this edge right here, made kind of the base have a cutaway from it, and then angled made an angle here so that it wasn't a 90-degree angle. They didn't meet at a 90-degree angle. You'll see what I mean if I get rid of this. I didn't want it to be like that. That would look kind of weird. So I added this angle here, and then I added an underside element because I like layering in block designs. Like I said before, I like adding depth, and that's something that Zindergame is really good at. And Stubby Pinata especially used to, whenever he first came out with the first Technos level, I was blown away by how much depth he had in his block designs. Still am to this day, but Zinder's a more modern example of that. But I tried to add some underlying area complemented by these shadows here. And to fill the space, I added these vertical lines. I don't know why, I just wanted to add a pattern to the area, and I feel like they actually worked out pretty well. From there, I spent quite a long time designing all of these signs you see over here. And I had a video of that, like I said before, many times. I lost it, unfortunately. But yeah, for the square ones, I tried to make them more directional. And for these other ones, the diamond-shaped ones, I made them more warning-based. Fun fact, this bottom-facing quadrant or part of the nuclear reactor symbol is actually much smaller than these top two ones, because if you choose this and were to make it, down here it would look way too large. I don't know why, it's like an optical illusion. Even though it is the same size, it would look way too large. Like, it just didn't really fit. So I made it smaller, actually, which I think looks better, and it actually looks like the same size. But that's beside the point. After I finished all these sign designs, which I will be using throughout this very short part, and is probably more than sufficient, I added it onto the block design, added a shadow underneath it to add more depth, like I mentioned before. And then to fill the rest of the space, I added an electrical panel, emphasized by these two screws on the top and bottom. And from there, I wanted to add some wiring leading into and out of it. And to top things off, I added a shadow underneath that too, once again, for depth. And one thing I do want to fix here is I want to connect up the circle, which I didn't have done before. You can see the circle starts to bend back. Okay, now that is basically what that block design looks like. And I'm thinking about, for this big one, scale hacking some of these signs to make them much larger and to fill up more space here. But for now, these are good enough, and they will basically be able to be used all throughout this part, and I'll have more than enough to do that. So I only have one block design left, and this one I actually didn't make on camera. I made it prior to filming these three, and it was the first block design I made, the one that helped me come up with the concept of this entire level. The first thing I made in this entire level, all I had was the song, and I knew I wanted to make a film set themed level, and the first thing I came up with was this block design, and it's one I actually love. It turned out a lot better than I thought it would, and it is for a part that's going to be themed around a clapperboard. And if you don't know what a clapperboard is, it's the thing directors have that they snap shut whenever they're starting a production or starting a shot. You know, they say 3, 2, 1 action, they slam shut the clapperboard. It's black and white. You'll notice what I mean as soon as I show you the block design. I don't know why I like this so much. It's very simplistic. It definitely isn't as complicated, or I don't know what the right word would be, but maybe well executed as the last one I just showed you. But something about it I just like a lot. Maybe it's one thing I think I pulled off really well was the implied outline. And what I mean by that is this top is the same color, like the base color of this top part is the same color as the outline. So if there was no highlight here, if I got rid of this, you wouldn't know what is the top and what's the outline. But because of this highlight, I imply where the outline is just through this one little section you can see. And so your mind kind of fills in the gaps here. It tells you that this is all an outline around the whole thing, despite it being the same color. And I don't know why, but I just feel like it works well. Of course, the entire thing, I started with the top part. And after I made the top part, I was left with this blank empty canvas for the bottom part. And I really didn't know what to do, and I will admit this is definitely the weak point of the block design. I wanted to fill it in so it looked like there was data or charts or statistics or like writing on it. And so I did that. And the reason I wanted to do that was because clapperboards, you can write on them. And if I were to just like do literal text, it obviously would look horrible, especially since you don't want people to be reading something in the middle of the level. And text usually just detracts from a level as a whole in most cases. And if I were to do implied writing, as in, you know, some people will do this where they add like these dashes, as in those are like words, you know. I don't know why people see those as words, but if I were to do that, I think it would just look really bland and uninspired. So I filled it up with something that looked like writing, but like more of a statistical data set type writing. And I don't know why I did it. I just came up with this sort of, I started with this abstract design, worked off of it, and this originally was not colored. I added the color to it, and I think it looks a bit better. I'm probably going to play around with this, though, the color of it still. And then I added these dots to the corner. It's designed to the top right. And overall, I think it turned out pretty good. I will say it's definitely, the weak point of the whole thing is definitely the main area of the block design, which is not something you want to be the weak point. But overall, I think it could have turned out a lot worse. And then, just for the concept, I copied it over, changed up the top a bit, got rid of the bottom so it was all flush with the floor. And then I decided to add a bit of a connection between them, which in this case is just like a smaller version of the top part, except there is no highlight on the stripe because it's too small to include that level of detail on, and no one will see it anyway. And then I just added a spike here. And then the final thing I did was to add a saturated version of the background behind it all. I don't know why, I just think this is like, it's kind of like, I know there's a word for it. I'm trying to remember.
One eternity later.
Okay, I literally spent around 30 minutes trying to figure out the word I was thinking of because I just couldn't let it go. And I was trying to think of the word vignette, so yeah. It was pretty anticlimactic when I finally remembered it, but yeah. These are kind of like a vignette behind the block design. If you've ever done any graphic design, basically a vignette is when you're making like a concept sketch, or it doesn't even have to be a concept sketch for anything. It can be, it's usually used in product design, but basically it's an underlying shape that goes behind whatever your main focus is, that provides a bit of contrast to the rest of the background, especially if the background's a plain color. I'll probably show an example on screen right now if I'm actually not lazy when editing this. But yeah, as a whole, that's about all I have to say about my block designs. In summation, essentially what I do is I usually start with a gray base. Always hue shifted slightly to blue usually, sometimes to purple, sometimes to orange. In this case it's a purplish blue, since this is located directly opposite of orange on the color wheel. It provides a nice contrast. And I usually try to come up with some top piece. That's not always the case, as you can see in the this part. I don't have a top piece, but I do like to add color to my block designs. In this case, it's the yellow of this, and I'm probably going to try to find a way to introduce more color into this block design. In fact, I might even saturate this yellow a bit later. Of course, I'm not going to get into all that right now, but back to what I was saying before, I usually do a dark gray hue shifted base with a darker outline than the base color. That's not always true. Sometimes I do white outlines, but in most cases, if the base is gray, I usually do a darker gray outline, since I think it really stands out nicely. And I have some sort of top. Usually this is colored. Sometimes there is no top. It all depends on the situation. In this case, the top is the striped part like a clapperboard, which I think is one of the only ways to do this, seeing as that's how a clapperboard looks in real life. And then I usually, or not usually, sorry, I sometimes add highlights to the top to make it look more shiny. I actually haven't, I actually did do that on my wave one. You can see the little highlight here. If I can go to the right layer. Yeah, you can see the highlight there. And other than that, I just try to find ways to add extra details. In reality, I wish I did better structuring on this. I might even change that in the future. But at the end of the day, you have to realize all of these are just concepts. Doesn't mean they're going to be exactly like this in the final version. There's a chance they will be. There's a chance they won't be. In reality, a lot of small things are probably going to get changed, but there's not going to be much noticeable changes. So yeah, although I'm quite disappointed and upset that I lost 3 hours of footage, that I couldn't show you the process of me building all this along with commentary, it was probably for the best, since most of the time I was just basically silent, and it wasn't too interesting to watch anyway. Probably would have sped up most of it and added in some audio of some type. So, but as a whole, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm definitely going to do more. I'm definitely going to do more videos with my voice in the future. Hopefully, talking about more block designs. And yeah, I hope you guys had a great day and great New Year's. As I'm speaking right now, it's January 1st for me. Hopefully, I'm going to get it uploaded by tonight. So yeah, I hope you have a great 2021. And yeah, see you guys later.